Okay, so welcome folks again to another interview. We've got Nicole from Nicole Weber Consulting. Thanks for coming, Nicole.
Great, thanks very much, Adam. It's good to be here.
Okay, well, let's jump into it. I know you're busy and our viewers will be busy as well. So Nicole, do you want to give us an idea of what Nicole Weber Consulting is about, how you got started, and the sorts of customers that you're looking after or serving, people that you're looking after?
Yeah, sure, Adam, no worries. So this is my second year of business as Nicole Weber Consulting. It's come off the back of a 25-year career working in human services mostly. So basically that means I've been working for not-for-profits and government organisations since the start of my career 25 years ago. That seems to have gone very fast.
Yeah.
But for most of that time, what I was doing was leading teams and resourcing teams. So I was a manager, I was a human resources manager, I did some project and policy work, and a lot of what I was doing was either managing and leading and influencing teams or helping people who did that.
Yep.
And so I started my business when I left government a couple of years ago. It gave me the opportunity to set up this business. And part of what I do is I do some project work. So that involves delivering projects for not-for-profits and for government agencies.
Okay.
And the other part of what I do is I consult to managers and leaders in organisations, mostly where they have tricky issues with their teams and need some support or some coaching and development around things like getting the best out of their teams, so engaging and motivating their teams, creating a really positive culture in their team, a really shared positive culture. Managing poor performance, which is something that a lot of leaders really shy away from and find it tough to do, and having even just those early conversations, so talking to people about their performance.
Yep.
So everything from, that really early, we've got a bit of a concern here, right through to, some formal performance management.
Yep.
So I do a lot of coaching with leaders around getting the best out of their teams, really. So how do you motivate, engage, support, develop your teams? So that's some of the work that I do with managers and with teams. And the other piece of work that I do with people from all types of backgrounds is I am a certified strengths-based coach. So what that means is I help people to understand, uncover, and maximise their strengths. So throughout my career, I've always worked from a strengths-based perspective. It sits really well with my philosophy, my personal philosophy on life, I guess. I'm a born optimist. And I really enjoy that process of helping people to work out what their strengths are, understand that their strengths are the way that their lens for interpreting the world, interpreting the information that comes their way.
Yep.
It forms their language. I can hear people's strengths in the way that they talk about things, and it often is really helpful in helping people to manage conflict and to get the best out of relationships, to create really healthy relationships with their partner, their children, their co-workers, their manager, people they're leading. It's really applicable across all areas of life. So I guess in summary, I work with individuals from all sorts of backgrounds. I work with teams and I work with organisations. So it's pretty broad, but everything I do sits within that strengths-based approach. So
So it does sound, thank you, Nicole. It sounds like, I'll just move up. I think I've started sinking. My chair's sinking a little bit. It sounds like, you've got it it all covered from not just a business approach or use, let's say, but also can flow over into people's personal life and other forms of activities where they're looking.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of the people that have approached me have felt really stuck, for example. So they might be somebody who is reaching a point in their life where they're at a bit of a T intersection. So they're trying to decide which way to head with their career, or with, relationships, or, just wanting, I guess, to have a better, healthier sort of outlook, I suppose. And they're not in a situation where they're thinking, look, I need counselling, but they're looking for something different and something better. They understand that there could be better things coming in their life. And so I've worked through career coaching with people. I've worked through, supporting people to be better at the job that they're in. And inevitably that flows over into across all areas of their life. It's rare to talk to somebody about their strengths and for them not to be able to see how it applies across all aspects of their life. Most of the people I work with will have that aha moment where they'll say, okay, so I've worked out how I can use my strengths or manage my weaknesses by not overusing my strengths at work, but I can really see how this is going to help my relationship with my partner or with my children, or both, or another family member. So that's really common that happens.
Well, it sounds like from what you're saying, and because I've known a little bit about what you've done, you've helped me with my own business and some my own things, let's say. So I do appreciate where you're coming from. For those who maybe don't have that sort of insight or inside information, let's say, do you want to give us just a few examples of what strengths-based, strengths versus weaknesses and those kinds of things might be? Yeah,
absolutely. Yep, and that's a great question. Thanks, Adam. So essentially, everybody's got strengths. We all have strengths, and the process that I use is it's an assessment tool. So it's an online assessment tool called the Clifton Strengths Finder. And what we do is people take that tool. There's a couple of tools that people can use if they're wanting to learn about their strengths. Some of them are free and some of them aren't. So if anybody is interested in strengths, I encourage you to do some Googling, have a bit of a look and see what's around.
I can drop a link to that Clifton thing if you want in the...
Fantastic, that'd be great. And people can also find that link on my website as well. But there are other tools around if people are interested. So what I do is I take people through a process where they get a report about what their top strengths are, what their strengths are, what are called dominant strengths, I guess. And they're the kind of default strengths that person has, that, as I said before, that's sort of their language and their lens for seeing the world. So for example, one of my top strengths is that I'm a learner. I'm a natural learner, and I'm also naturally strategic. It's just how my brain works. And so what that means is that I love to learn. In everyday situations, if I'm talking about a challenge or an obstacle, or something tricky has happened, something bad's happened, I'll often say to people, oh, well, that was a learning experience. And that's my default. It's how my brain works. And I also naturally look, like I said, I'm strategic. So what that means is that I can make connections really quickly. If I'm having a conversation with somebody, I can kind of see the big picture really quickly, and I can pull the different things together and see how I guess it's a bit like a game of chess. I can see how the different parts can work together and what might be possible as some next steps. So there are a couple of my strengths. I've got others, but there are a couple. What that also means is that I have to be aware that if I overuse those, they can become weaknesses. So
tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, so a good example is one of my other strengths is I'm very much a future picture thinker. So it's a strength called futuristic. So I naturally think ahead, always. It's always been part of who I am. I'm one of those people that has a 2-year plan and a 5-year plan and a 10-year plan. And if you're not a futuristic thinker, if that's not one of your top strengths, you might go, oh, you're one of those people. So we might all know somebody who's got, that kind of way of thinking. And so for me, that's a strength of mine. But when I overuse it, it gets in the way of me being present and in the moment. Because what I'm doing is I'm listening, I'm having a conversation with somebody, and they're telling me about an idea that they've got, or they're telling me about their business or something that's going on. And I'm already thinking 5 steps ahead. it's gone. It's off having a great old time planning the future for them. And so that really gets in the way of me being present. So when I'm, because I know that about myself, I actively use my learner strength, and I think, no, just get curious about what's going on here. Get curious about this person and turn up your learner and turn down your futuristic. So strengths are like, if you can imagine the volume dial on a radio. If you turn the volume up too high on a strength, it becomes a weakness, and you just need to get the volume right. So I help people understand how their strengths work in their life when they're at the right volume and when the volume's up too high. And we work on really practical strategies. So it might all sound a bit of a theory, but what I do is I help people with really practical strategies that they can use day to day, so that they can get the most out of their strengths. And the research around strengths says that when we know and use our strengths every day, we are happier, we're healthier, and we're more productive. So there's a whole lot of evidence that sits behind this. So it's it's something that, and I've seen for myself, having used this approach for a number of years with managers and with teams and organisations, I've seen how it can really transform the way that people work. So another really quick, great example that I always use with people is if you're in a conversation with somebody and you're finding that that person's really rubbing you the wrong way, or there's conflict with that person, a great thing to switch that is to get curious about their strengths, because the chances are they might have really different strengths to you. And so when you start to look for people's strengths and appreciate their strengths, it completely changes the conversation and it completely changes the perspective. And I've done that with people in my family. I've done that with co-workers. I've done that with managers. I've done that in lots of areas of life. And it's just a really simple thing that you can do. And everybody can do that without, anybody who's watching this, even if you don't know what your strengths are, just get curious about what you think other people's strengths might be as well as your own, and just start looking for things.
Nicole, I just want to jump in there. I can imagine, this is going to sound like it's not related at all, but I'm a Leo, born in August, and I know nothing about any of the other star signs. I know very little about my own. Is it a case of, when you sort of dive in with people, with teams or individuals into this, that they get really familiar, really up to scratch or up to speed with what their strengths profile, I think you mentioned what their strengths profile is about. Does that just then flow on that they can see that other people perhaps aren't like those two strengths, or is it a matter of becoming familiar with sort of the whole range of them? How does that work, if that makes sense?
Yeah, so I guess what I would say is it's great to understand what the whole range of strengths. So the Clifton strengths tool that I use, there are 34 strengths, different strengths that are identified. And usually we will have 10 to 12 that are our dominant strengths. So they're the ones that we just default naturally to, okay? And so when people can get familiar with all 34, just an awareness, just understanding that there are 34 different strengths, and it's not something you have to dive really deeply into and know inside and out. I mean, as a strengths coach, I know a fair bit about those. But there's even a couple that I have to refamiliarize myself with from time to time, because that I don't come across them very often, or they're very different to my strengths. So but what I would also say is that even strengths aren't labels. So we don't, the example that you gave of, you're a Leo, and people will sometimes say that. They'll go, oh, what star sign are you? And you'll say, I'm an Aries. And they'll go, oh, well, that means that you are blah, Strengths don't work like that. So our strengths profile is unique. And when I say that, what I mean is that there's a 1 in 33 million chance of you meeting somebody that has exactly the same 1 to 34 in the same order as we do.
Yep.
So that combination of strengths and the order that they appear for you is kind of what makes you you.
Yep.
And so even though, for example, I've got some friends and people in my life close to me who we have 7 or 8 of the same top 10 or 10 to 12 strengths, which we get along really well because we speak the same language and we have similar strengths, but they're in completely different order and we're completely different people, you know?
Yeah.
So just because somebody has a particular strength, it's not about pigeonholing people. It's really about understanding that people do have strengths and trying to understand and ask the right questions and appreciate what that is for them. So a great example would be, I know lots of people who have high positivity. So what that means is that positivity as a strength is in their top 10 to 12.
Okay.
I'm one of those people, okay? And so people have positivity in their top 10 to 12 are, as you would expect, naturally optimistic and positive people, okay? The shadow side of that, or the weakness that can come with that if you overuse positivity, is that you can be quite idealistic and not be able to see what could go wrong in a situation, for example.
Yeah, it's too positive, or it's okay.
Yeah, and the other thing that can happen with people who have that positivity as a dominant strength is that they can be a little bit dismissive of people who need to work through a tough situation and need some time to grieve that situation, or to to just sit in it and go, actually, this is I'm really unhappy right now, and somebody with that dominant positivity might say, oh yeah, but the silver lining in this situation is this.
And everyone's like, no, there is no silver lining right now.
And so sometimes, when we see that sort of stuff, it gives us an opportunity to sort of go, oh, okay, so this is, instead of going, okay, I really wish this person would just take their optimism and bugger off. It gives us the opportunity to say, oh, okay, so this is somebody who's just really optimistic.
Yep.
Yeah. And it gives us the opportunity to then let them know and say, hey, listen, I can see that you're a naturally optimistic person and you're seeing the silver lining. What I need right now is I just need some time to deal with this and adjust. And yeah, I'll get there. I'll see the silver lining, but I need more time than you.
Yep. It sounds like it can be a very good approach to, I guess, to know yourself. I think that's a Shakespeare quote, know thyself. But also in doing that, to understand others as well, and sort of to help smooth the waters where at times that you might have perhaps labelled someone for a particular behaviour, but now if you can sort of perhaps see why, okay, that's why they're taking that approach or that decision. It can then help temper your own reaction to it, or you can be more in control of choosing your behaviours. Would that be?
Oh, absolutely. So two things I would say about that, Adam. One is that a lot of the work that I do with people is around self-awareness. So that piece about knowing yourself and just becoming self-aware, if you can do that, you're ahead of the game. If you can develop that ability to sit back and reflect and go, okay, what's going on here for me? What am I doing right now? What's pushing my buttons? And really understanding that. And then the next piece of that is managing your response. If you can do that, you're so far ahead of the game, because it's not common,
Yeah, and you're not just reacting to everything. You're choosing, choosing a path.
Yeah.
I like that. That resonates with me. I really like it.
Yeah,
all right,
absolutely. And the second thing, sorry, really quickly, the second thing I was going to say was that the second part of that is we get more of what we focus on. Okay, so what that means is that if you're looking for the way that our brains are wired is that we're wired to look for negativity. It's what we're wired to do. Okay, and so if you can change that and shift your focus to strengths, you're actually looking for strengths and you're looking for positives. And what that does is it does shift your focus, because when you're looking for negativity, you will find it. You will absolutely find it.
Yep.
So, for example, with children, if you're a parent or a step parent, or if you're a teacher, or in your team, if you're leading a team of people, or at home with a family member, any situation, if what you start to focus on is looking for strengths, then that's what you will find. And it takes, if you think about the energy that you want to have around you, do you want to be sitting in that negative space where you're going, oh, and this is wrong and that's wrong with that person and that's really annoying and that's getting on my nerves? Or do you want to be going, okay, that's different to me. That's interesting. Maybe I need to learn more about that. Maybe I need to ask a different question, or ask a question in a different way. And I wonder what the strength is that sits behind what this person's saying. It's a different focus.
Yep. Oh, cool. And that seems to give the other person an opportunity to come out rather than just be attacked or just be labelled, for example.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, let's move on. I've got a couple more questions. Wow, you're answering a lot longer than you give me a lot of information, which is fantastic. I'm hoping people are really enjoying this. You may have covered it a little bit, but did you want to just go into why you decided to start this business? That's the why behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of what I do now, I was previously doing. So I was doing this work in organisations that I was employed by, basically.
Yep.
And starting my own business gave me the opportunity to work in a more flexible way, I suppose. So it allows me to combine a number of different types of work that I really enjoy doing. And it's given me that freedom and the flexibility to do that. So I work with clients across Australia. So I have clients that I work with in the Northern Territory, for example, in Victoria, all over the place.
Yep.
So, and before we were all locked down and our travel was restricted, a lot of that I was doing in person. So I was flying all over the place and doing work face to face. But for me, it comes down to purpose. After 25 years of leading teams and working in communities, doing community development, running projects, writing policies, doing research, all kinds of things, it's given me a lot of experience to draw on. And what I love doing is working with individuals and with teams and organisations and sharing that. So I guess what I bring to my work is a really diverse background and a really rich background. But the thing that ties it all together is that I've always worked with humans. I've always worked to help humans, to help people, whether it was in really practical ways. I worked in the disability sector for a long time, and I still do work in that sector.
Yep.
And, so whether it was, in very practical ways like that, or whether it was, helping people to plan, do strategic planning and business planning, and helping make sure that their business was going to be viable. And, they had good financial planning and good governance in place and all that sort of stuff, good policies. It's quite broad. And so it's nice to be able to apply all of that diverse experience to what I do now, but do it in a really flexible way. Yep.
And as you said, like now, I guess less flexible in the travel sense. You probably have more of a, what we're doing now, more of a, either opportunity, I guess, or, this is a different medium to be able to do it in, to be able to connect via phone or via Skype, which is, I guess, a bonus for you as well, to be able to still do that. Not everyone has that luxury at the moment. Okay. And so I guess in terms of sort of takeaways or things that people could practically do, it always can be good for people to get a little takeaway, if you like. Is there something that people could do? And, you suggested in the pre-interview, the little snippet that we did of people sort of considering their strengths. Is it possible for them to, let's say, do that a test quickly, or not quickly as in throw away, but to be able to sort of get a grasp about how they might see themselves in terms of strengths or over
Yeah.
strengths?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would really encourage people, if they are looking to, to get an edge really in any setting, whether it's their business, their work, their relationships, their parenting, study, whatever it might be, getting an insight, a really great insight and understanding of themselves is always going to be a step in the right direction. So what I would say is, definitely take the Clifton Strengths tool. There's another tool called the VIA tool. It's free, so we can do a link for that as well. It's a free tool. It's a similar tool, and what you'll get from both of them is a report. I like Clifton Strengths because it applies really well to work across all settings, whereas I find the other tool, the VIA tool, lends itself better to more personal situations. And so I find that the Clifton tool is a bit more rounded. So whichever way people go, take a test, do one of the tools. Do it when you've got some free space and you're not feeling really stressed or really under the pump. Go with your gut instinct when you answer the questions. Try not to answer in a neutral way, because the more questions you answer as a neutral response, you'll get a less accurate outcome. These tools, they're what are called psychometric tools. So what that means is that they were developed by psychologists, and they've been tested and retested to make sure that they stand up to, they're scientific. Okay, so they're not like a Woman's Weekly personality profiler. Okay, nothing against
scientific.
No, so nothing against the Woman's Weekly quiz. I'm sorry, but this is not. They're not that kind of thing. Okay, they're really. So I'll give you an example. Over 21 million people, or the Clifton Strengths tool has been taken over 21 million times by people across the whole world. Okay. And so these are really respected tools, and they're worth investing in. So that's what I would say. I mean, I think you can take the entry level of the Clifton Strengths is about $20. So, it's not too much of a, what's that, 4 coffees. It's not too much of a thing. What it'll give you is it'll give you a personalised report. Pretty much everybody that I've worked with who's done the tool and gotten the report has kind of looked at me and gone, it is spooky how well this test knew me.
It was scary, actually. It's like, and there were some parts where I was like, I don't want it to be like that. But it's like, well, okay.
So you had that experience, right? Where you look at it and go, this is scarily accurate. Okay. And then you've got this information that you can then really use. Now, whether you want to follow that up with some coaching or not is entirely up to you. But you get the report. It gives you some really useful information that you can then take away and do some things with. The first thing I would say is read it, get familiar with it, and just start to notice how you're using your strengths. When do they show up? When are you overusing them? When do they get in the way? So that's where I would say that that's a fantastic starting point. Yep,
fantastic. And those links are also available on your site as what your website.
There's a link to Clifton's on my website because that's the tool that I'm accredited with. And I can certainly we can certainly supply you with a link for the VIA tool if people want to use that. That's the free one. It's a bit limited. The free version is limited in what it gives you, but it's still free and it's information. So
it can be a start.
Why not?
Fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you. So I guess there's 2 more questions. Is the first one is obviously given the COVID-19, the way that society and governments are reacting to it, there's changes, restrictions in place, lockdowns, etc. Are you doing anything differently, or have you noticed anything different in the people that you're chatting with, your clients, in the way that sort of they're approaching things, or they're looking at the world, or just the way you're approaching business? yeah, grab something from that question.
Yeah, sure. So what I would say is, yes, all of my work has shifted to online. I'm pretty fortunate in that I was doing most of my work from home anyway, or a large proportion of my work was from home anyway. So
Yeah.
I haven't had to make that transition, that a lot of people have had to make, where they're all of a sudden working from home. So what it's allowed me to do is connect more with people via video link. In the past, it would have been either in person, or we probably just would have done a phone conversation. And so things like coaching with particularly individuals, that I can do over the phone. I have done a lot over the phone with people. And now we would be doing that via Zoom, via video link. And so that works really neatly. What it does mean, I guess, is that people are more flexible. I think there's people are having a bit more space in their life at the moment. For some people, they can be a bit more flexible because they've stepped away from jobs that have been quite restricted and quite timetabled, and they're able to be more flexible themselves, which is great from the perspective that people have moved into a different mindset, and they've moved to, part of my purpose of starting my own business was I really like not having to focus on my butt being on a seat, and being, being seen to be working. And I've been able to shift to just producing work, which, I'm one of those people, I'm efficient and I get through work in a short space of time. And so for me, that's great. And it's meant that other people have had that focus as well.
Yep.
My work has shifted to supporting people to manage that transition.
Okay.
So a lot of the work that I'm doing is helping people, how do you engage with your team remotely? How do you keep them engaged and motivated? And how do you support them? So I've been doing a bit of work around that. And also I'm thinking a lot too about what happens next. So I'm really aware that, people are going to need ongoing support for quite some time, I think. And, we're in this state at the moment where, unfortunately, we're seeing people as a threat. We're seeing one another as potential infectors, and that's not great. That's not healthy. And so I'm very aware of that as somebody who supports people in the work that I do. And so I'm talking to people about that and just raising awareness about that. And we're talking about how do we make sure that we are careful with our relationships and our connections so that we can keep those really strong, whilst doing all the stuff that we need to do to stay physically safe as well. So
it's that balance. It seems like there's that that dichotomy, maybe is the word, again, is the flexibility and that almost freedom that you're feeling, or you've been, you've sort of set yourself up for in your business. People are now almost being forced to experience that, and that can be quite disconcerting or unnerving. And it's great that through your expertise and essentially what you do, you can help people to manage that and to find, I guess, to move towards that effectiveness at home, that efficiency. Many people have perhaps seen the video on YouTube of that guy who's giving some really important interview, and his kid just waltzes in. It's sort of the classic, the now classic image of what it's like to work from home, and just trying to balance that and manage getting work done and keeping that that separation there as well.
Yeah, and I suppose the other thing that my coaching work does is it helps people to understand how they react to change and what they need to manage that change successfully. So our strengths determine, what we need. So for example, like I said, I'm a futuristic thinker, and right at the moment, we don't know what the future looks like. We don't know when this current sort of lockdown situation is going to finish. We don't know how long it's going to be before we can travel again within our own country, overseas. I had some holidays planned, and I've had to cancel those trips. And I'm sure that there would be, you know, other people in that situation. I had work lined up that has been cancelled. So, you know, it's about, I understand that one of the things that I need because of my strengths is I need a plan. And because I know I need that to feel okay and to feel healthy and balanced, I've made plans of things that I can control. So I've focused some attention on that. So that's one of the things that I help people to understand as well, because when we don't feed our strengths, when we don't do things that look after our strengths, we feel really off balance and out of kilter. But looking after them gives us immediate relief. It calms our brain down. It helps us to move out of panic and reactivity. And it just helps us to be calmer and feel more balanced and more in control. So and that's big right now. People are having to shift and change really rapidly. And you know, this has all happened in a really short space of time, and there's a lot of uncertainty, and you know, people are dealing with a lot for themselves and their families, and you know, and their co-workers, so much. So there's
definitely a lot going on in I know you haven't said it specifically, but in the mental health space as well, as a result of all these changes. And just from what you're saying, I can hear how that sense of control, or that, you know, that calm is something that many people are needing right now. So just thank you so much for spending time here today. It does really seem like the insight and the expertise which you can provide people can really help bridge that gap between the professional life and the personal life, which is now sort of becoming one of the same in this environment. But also giving people practical tools on an individual level to feel more in control and more aware of themselves and their environment and their team members, which are now also possibly sitting in the same situation, feeling exactly the same way. So it sounds like you're, through Nicole Weber Consulting, you're really promoting an intentional approach to life. That's good.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. That's a really lovely way of putting it. Yeah.
All right. Did you have any not last words? That sounds a bit final. Anything you wanted to share with the group? Now, the Tweed Valley support group. It's about supporting each other, not just by buying each other's things, but by offering support in many ways. Is there anything you wanted to leave with the group?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I would say connect. You know, if you're in a situation where you are trying to deal with a wicked issue, whether it's in your business or elsewhere, and you want to have a conversation where you think, you know, strengths could be useful, just connect with me. There's, you know, absolutely no obligation for anything else other than to have a conversation. And I'm always happy to talk to people about strengths. It's a passion of mine that I've been able to turn into my work, which is fantastic. And I would say, you know, that one of the things that I've learned through the time that I've been in business is just that, you know, there's never such a thing as a wasted connection. You know, when I've been doing a lot of relationship building in the local community and, you know, across Australia, and I don't make connections with people to get customers. I make connections with people because I enjoy doing that, and I enjoy building relationships. And at times that means that I can connect other people with other people, so I can help facilitate connections. And sometimes it's, you know, that we'll both get something just out of the conversation that we have. So what I would say, you know, is stay connected, stay in touch, so that we can support each other. And yeah, so that's what I'd really recommend. And, you know, I don't think, you know, sometimes people really hesitate to do that. And I would say, you know, just connectedness right now is a really important thing. And I want everybody in our community to be well and safe. And we've got the opportunity to connect in lots of different ways. So yeah, get in touch. I'm on Facebook. I've got a Facebook page, my consulting Facebook page. I'm on Instagram. Go to my website. You can reach me through there. But
Fantastic.
yeah, feel free to reach out.
Cool. Thanks, Nicole. We'll put all those details below or somewhere for people to be able to get in touch with you and take you up on that offer to connect. So thanks, Nicole. Nicole Weber from Nicole Weber Consulting.
Fantastic.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Adam. It's great to talk to you.
Cheers.